All right, everybody, welcome back. So this is the final one. This is presentation number 13 of 13. This is an overview of the previous 12. We're just going to highlight the main bullet points of everything that we went over. So this is a good reference presentation if you just need to refresh on a topic idea or bullet point. So the first thing I want to do is just uh, go back over quickly what trauma actually is. So it is exposure to an event that involves actual or possible threat of death, violence, or serious injury. Does not have to be directly exposed. You can learn about it, be a loved one being exposed to it, witness others being exposed to it, etc. There has to be the presence of one or more of identified symptoms within the DSM that begin after the traumatic event. Hypervigilance, nightmares, disassociation, flashbacks, psychological distress, and physiological or body-based symptoms. The duration has to be at least 1 month or more for these symptoms in order for it to be diagnosed as PTSD. There has to be a negative impact on cognitive abilities, and the persistent attempt to avoid triggers is a common one too. So the person will avoid people, places, and things that remind them of the traumatic event. Mind and body. Trauma is a mind and body disorder, so they both have to be addressed. In the body, the muscles become stiff and tense due to the blood and energy being redirected so that you can have explosive energy to fight or flight. The body becomes shaky due to the release of adrenaline and other chemicals that increase your abilities so that you are at your best for fight or flight. Your body will begin to sweat because it's attempting to cool down your core temperature because you have increased in temperature due to all the extra activity. Just like if you were revving the engine in your car, you're going to produce more heat. You're going to need more cooling from the fan. Your heart rate increases because it's trying to move blood around the body from non-vital operations to muscles and vital operations for explosive energy to fight or flight. Your blood vessels also constrict, which means your heart has to work harder. They constrict. Um, One of the reasons is so that it protects you, like if you're injured, you don't bleed out as fast. The frontal lobe is not readily accessible, which means that you're not able to really access logic and you're running off of either a mixture of emotion in the middle brain and instinct from the hind part of your brain, from the brainstem. Your breathing becomes rapid and shallow because you are trying to pull in as much oxygen as possible because this is the fuel that you need for explosive energy and to reroute all the blood. Your lungs become become primary as your diaphragm is ignored. So you breathe into your chest and you do not breathe deep into your stomach using the diaphragm muscle, which is made for breathing. When you are a clinician and working with a client, or if you are a client, you should be looking for this. This is one of the simplest ways to approach trauma in a clinical setting. LEAP. L. Lay foundation. Identify immediate concerns and connect that client with any resources. If the client doesn't have anywhere to live, they don't have food and water, it doesn't matter if they don't have friends. That's not where you would focus. You have to focus on what matters first. So make sure that they're resourced the best that they can. And at this time, you're also building rapport and you're building hope and explaining the process to them. Educate. Provide psychoeducation on the symptoms that they're experiencing. Help them understand why they're experiencing what they're experiencing. Help them to know that they're not crazy. Help them to find out that they don't have something that is forever going to run their life, that it is something that can be cured or managed. Next is focusing on acquiring skills. Identify coping skills and practice them with the client. Have the client practice them on a regular basis between sessions. Help them to improve their mind-body connection and awareness of the signs and symptoms in their body that let them know that they are becoming dysregulated. Then finally, the very last phase, do you process and heal? This is where you identify trauma, triggers, behaviors, and you actually go after them. You actually go after these wounds, you try and heal these wounds, but you don't do this till the end because first the person has to be resourced, they have to be educated to know what's going on and what to expect, they have to have some skills in order to cope, and they have to have a mind-body awareness so that they can pay attention. Then you can begin the process and heal because this is going to cause some discomfort. And finally, you create a long-term aftercare plan for them. So they need to have proactive and reactive strategies to manage their anxiety, stress, or trauma. These are the various treatment options that we discussed, and there's more. Prolonged exposure therapy, written exposure therapy, sensory motor psychotherapy by Pat Ogden, somatic experiencing, which is usually attributed to Peter Levine, EMDR, usually attributed to Francine Shapiro. Progressive counting is something that's a little bit newer, considering, but it's one that I would suggest that you look into. It's been shown to be as effective as EMDR. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapies, emotional freedom technique, EFT, which is the tapping using acupressure points, trauma-informed or trauma-focused yoga and art therapies, and then obviously medication can be an option if it seems right. These are the various trainings and certificates that people can get if they would like to expand their knowledge. The ones with asterisks are ones where you're required to have a certain type of professional license before you can get them. The ones without the asterisks, anybody could get. So if you wanted to learn more, you could go get you could become a certified trauma professional, and you don't have to have any other licenses or anything else. Certified clinical anxiety, certified anxiety informed professional, you don't have to have a license. And then for the certified clinical trauma professional, there's a level 2. The level 1, I don't know if you have to have your license. You didn't used to, so that may be a mistake. You can look. I think you just have to be maybe a master's in the mental health field. But for the certified clinical trauma professional level 2 for complex PTSD, that's the CCTP2, you have to be a licensed professional. And then you can also get trained in EMDR, which I am, and I would highly suggest for any clinician. Books. Man's Search for Meaning is a great book by Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust, and it just really talks about the ability to control your life through the way that you think. It's very well written, and it's a very important book. This is Dr. Eric Gentry's book. I did some training with him. He's a great guy. He wrapped up a lot of body-based trauma interventions and then added his own stuff to it, and they're very well known. Arizona Trauma Institution is a prestigious place. I mean, Dr. Gentry and Dr. Roten run that place basically, and at least at the time that I'm doing this, and they're both really informed and really care about what they're doing. Waking the Tiger is a very important book by Peter Levine that talks about the animalistic nature that we have in response to trauma, and it's important to remember that we do have an animalistic instinct along with a social human aspect. Getting Past Your Past was written by Francine Shapiro, who created EMDR. This is a great book not only for a practitioner but for just an everyday person. It'll really help you understand what EMDR is and how to use it, and even teach you some techniques to use some of it in your own life without even having to have a therapist. The Body Keeps the Score is my #1 book. This is written by Bessel van der Kolk. He is a staple in the trauma field. If you're into trauma, you know him. He's amazing, and he's the one who really got this trauma in the body thing kicked off into the main field, so everybody would start buying into it, exploring it, and seeing, oh wow, we do carry trauma in the body. And last is Sensory Motor Psychotherapy by Pat Ogden. This is another great body-based psychotherapy book, and this book is written for both the clinician and the client. So the clinician and the client would use this book simultaneously together, actually. If you would like to contact me, www.theanxiousmammal.com. You can also write me at my email, which is klyonslcsw@gmail.com. There's my LinkedIn, which has everything. My LinkedIn's very thorough. And just some credentials, just so you know what I specialize in. But please reach out. You can go to The Anxious Mammal and just use that contact page. You don't got to remember any of this. If you have any questions, if you need help, if you have any feedback, it's all welcome. This is all free resources. I do this just because I care, and also because probably because I have ADHD and I'm crazy, because I do this all day at work, and then on my breaks and at home I'm doing it again for free. But I truly want to provide resources for you guys that matter, and so I need your feedback so that you can help me understand the best that I can. I hope that this presentation series has been useful for some of you. I know it was useful for me to create. It really helps to embed some things and have me explore further in some areas where I needed some more knowledge. Again, please reach out to me at theanxiousmammal.com with any questions, comments, concerns, complaints, obscenities, or anything else you can think of. Thanks, you guys.